And welcome to The Punter, your guide to the weekend sporting action and all the bets you should be making to get some value this weekend and end on Sunday night. A happier camper. Now, the big box office sensation at the cinema right now is The Hunger Games. So in honour of that, I've had a cull. Only the strongest have survived. So please welcome my in-studio guest who grabbed the crossbow just before Neil Channing, Alan Alger. Alan,
Hi Nick, you right?
I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. It's
Great
very
to see
lonely on this side of
I
the
know,
desk
right?
today.
I actually think it's nice because we might actually hear one of you talk now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how's your week been?
It's been not too bad so far. A couple of games in our division on the Tuesday, the Blue Square, and caught some of the Champions League action and spoke to the guys in the studio. The Bet Butler was in, and we both nailed the 0-0 in the Milan-Barcelona game in midweek, which was a good one.
Yeah.
And we also quite fancied Bayern as well.
Yeah, they actually look really strong, I think.
They really do, especially defensively.
We'll into that in a second. The weather's been really nice this week, and I have to start with a hobby horse, which was, I was watching the Tottenham-Chelsea game,
yes.
And the Sky guys continually blame the weather for it being a bad game. I was in London, it was 19 degrees. What was the problem with running around in 19 degrees? It was weird.
I know, it's a very strange thing, isn't it? Because I think that players do enjoy playing with a little bit of rain in the air and
right.
You know, just a tiny bit. The temperature's obviously a lot lower than that. I mean, I run sort of 10k races and I can't stand it if it's anything above sort of 15, and they're running about for 90 minutes intense action. But they are athletes, and really that shouldn't be the excuse.
It seems like
not,
Premier League footballers.
Not like it's 24. I mean,
no.
We're going to Qatar for the World Cup soon. None of those players can be in contention if they're saying that.
It just makes me laugh. When it gets down to about 7 degrees, they wear gloves.
Yeah.
And then 19 still, it's like about a 3-degree window where they'll actually play well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, there's been a lot of Premier League action last weekend and during the week a little bit as well. Was that during the week? I mean, maybe not during the week, but that was last weekend. And the title race has swung over the last few weeks. We've now got Man United favourites after being favourites about 10 days now. After Man City being favourites for most of the time. Are you still seeing money on the title race?
We are still seeing money on the title race. I don't know whether it's people that have backed certain prices and are still trying to get a position in the title race. Maybe people that have taken Manchester United at a big price and going back in for some City just to cover it. But you look there, the price before they played Fulham on Monday night, 11-4 on.
Right.
We obviously expected them to win because we've only clipped it a tiny point because we've got the 3 points on the board. Some say it wasn't a convincing performance from Manchester United that night, but they got the points on the board. City went to Stoke, they drew 1-1. In the context of a season, that's not a bad result, going to the Britannia Stadium and drawing 1-1. When you're in a title run-in with your closest neighbours, the ones that have been there and done it before, that's when it becomes a poor result. And the fact that they managed to pull that out of the fire and get a point has to be used as a positive by Roberto Mancini. But the pressure's on, and we've said it time and time again. I've said it, Russ has said it, all the guests on the show have said it, that United just get into a groove. And we quoted 3 games ago that they had a 7-game run or 8-game run before they played City, and they were going to be 2-1 on or shorter for every single one of those games. And we priced it as just 7-1 that they would win all of them. Okay. And some said it was poor value, but they're 3 from 3 at the moment, and it just doesn't look as if they're going to stop. And some might say that actually could have been one of the best bets ever before they play City.
Yeah, maybe, although I tend to think it's that old thing of they'll trip up somewhere, but it's hard to pinpoint where. So you can say, well, they've got this 7-game window and they're favourites in every game, but mathematically we know it's unlikely they'll actually win every game.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say, well, this is the game they'll mess up.
No, because effectively you're saying it's 25-1 on the opposite side that they will slip up and either draw or lose in one of those games. But just taking each match as an individual, it really does look as if they've just got the absolute dream run. And that puts pressure on City.
Yeah, that's
They'll
true.
see them racking up those points, and even if they think that they're going to get a little window of opportunity when they play United or later on in the season, it's just not happening for them at the moment. They really need to stay focused, and they've not done it before, and it does count a lot. You've seen what confidence can do for a team with Arsenal, and confidence for Manchester United.
Let's have a quick look at the top of the table. So, I'm sure most of you will know that Man United are on top. Funnily enough, Man City kind of still have it in their own hands, because if they win all their remaining games, including beating United, they'll almost certainly still win the title, funnily enough.
Absolutely, yeah. And they were actually shorter to win it on goal difference if it did come down to goal difference, because they had a bigger advantage.
So
it's been eaten into, actually, their goal difference.
If someone made you bet on the title race at the prices, which one would you be backing?
You're talking about a two-horse race with a bit of percentage built in, and I'd like to think our guys have got it right. But if you were asking me who will win the title, then I would certainly go with United.
Okay.
I wouldn't be taking the odds against City as a value bet.
All right.
But I think our guys have got models that are so correct at this stage of the season in predicting, what's gone before, what supremacy quotes there'll be for other games. I'm not deterring people from betting, because what I would say is if you do think that City are going to do it just on paper, then certainly have a bet at 9-4, because you're getting a balanced market, you're getting a two-way market there.
Right. And we must talk about Arsenal, because you're a massive fan of Wenger and his methods, and of course it's come right again.
See, this is the
I'm
thing.
Teasing you, I know.
Yeah. I know the videos out there from my outburst earlier in the season, and me criticising his methods in certain ways, and I still stand by everything that I said in that particular interview, and I just think it shows the league up to be quite a poor league if Arsenal can go and do this.
Oh, it's a terrible league. It's a terrible league this year.
Yeah. And make no mistake, this isn't Arsenal of old. This isn't the 2003 Arsenal that are going to sides away from home and winning 5-0 like they were in that season. It's certainly not that at all. In fact, some of the wins inside of that have been quite lucky. You support Liverpool. I mean, how we won that game, I don't know.
That was a little bit of robbery, that one.
But and also, 2-0 down against Tottenham, come back. We're conceding goals. The defence does look slightly more solid as they're getting players back. But overall, I would say, I still know from speaking to people at the club, they don't coach defence. I don't think he has a good grasp
that does
of that.
up.
And, why not? If he's an intelligent guy and he sees that as one minor flaw, seeing what you can do off the back of confidence, well, just surely add to it. Yeah. With a bit of that's what I can't get. So it's not me criticising him. It's me saying that he's not as good as everyone says.
No.
I have to. He's obviously good. He's not as good as everyone says.
I want you to stand by. I want you to stand by your guns out. I don't want you to back down. Even if
I am. I'm not
they
backing
win every
down.
game, I don't want you to back down.
I'm not backing down. I just have to clarify. It's not an overall criticism of him.
It is extraordinary that they're now above Tottenham, given all of the press Tottenham have had, I think, slightly undeservedly this season. But anyway, let's move on to the FA Cup, which the picture of which got cleared up. We've got the semi-finals coming up, a Merseyside derby, which I'll be watching through my fingers, and the Chelsea-Tottenham game. We've got the odds to win outright, and obviously it's a pretty open market. You can just take your pick.
Absolutely love this. I mean, it's got down to a stage where you've got four big teams. Okay, I think people tend to swing with the FA Cup, because when two small teams get in the final, before it they say, oh, wonderful, it's good to see other clubs in there. We had Stoke in there last year, but before that we had Portsmouth, Cardiff. People say, oh, it's wonderful, small clubs. Then they don't watch it, or they say it was a boring game. And in fact, to be honest, Chelsea and Manchester United served up one of the worst ones ever.
One of the worst football matches I've watched.
Absolutely. I mean, there can be good 0-0s. Don't worry about that. But that was shocking.
Was horrendous.
But now we've got four big teams. We've got four teams with huge heritage, and it's a great market. It looks a great market. And looking at the way we've priced it up, 5-2 co-favourites to 3 at this stage is almost unheard of.
Yeah, really weird.
And
very unusual.
The fact that Everton are hitting a bit of form, people will have seen Liverpool recently and think, well, I'll take a chance. I'll definitely take a chance. If you ask me, free bet now on that market, 4-1 Everton is a good bet, because I'd be taking them to beat Liverpool in that semi-final and then hold that 4-1 voucher against whoever they're playing in the final. And they'll obviously be shorter by that time.
I can't disagree. Everton are, I think they're 3 points behind Liverpool in the league, or 4 points.
Yeah, certainly. That's like another gap between two sort of derby rivals that's actually closing.
When Liverpool beat them at Anfield, Everton rested 2 or 3 of their best players. I really don't think there's much between the teams, so I think you're right on that one.
You don't think that's a reflection of the two sides that game at all, because of Everton resting players?
Yeah, no, I was agreeing.
Yeah.
I think it is, and I think the teams are actually pretty closely matched.
I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Let's check out the Champions League, shall we? Al was saying that he called the AC Milan-Barcelona game, and any effect on the market? The fact that Barcelona doesn't look like there is much, because AC Milan's still backable at 20-1. You just don't fancy anybody to go to the Nou Camp and get anything out of it.
No. There's two things you can take from that midweek draw. First off, you could say that you want to drift Barcelona because they didn't get the away goal.
Yeah.
So therefore, any scoring draw suits Milan. So that the slight percentage swings back in Milan's favour. But it only does that when you look at the away goals, because then you start looking at the fact that Milan, that was their chance to beat Barcelona. That was their chance to get in front. They were on their own pitch. So it rather cancels
record is just insane.
It cancels itself out, and we've seen how poor Milan can actually be away from home with the Arsenal defeat.
And any money for Chelsea this week?
Yeah. The thing is, we always lay the English sides. It's a bit like the England effect in big tournaments. Teams that people recognise. Although I would say now with the Champions League, people do recognise all these teams and watch them week in, week out. There's plenty of good TV coverage. But people do latch on to the English sides, and we have seen a little bit of money around. And it was a fantastic performance. It was exactly what they needed, and you have to respect that. They've been cut from 12-1 to 8-1, and the way that the draw shapes up,
I think Real Madrid are a nightmare for them, I have to say, because I think Real Madrid can stand up to them physically, because that's the advantage they have over a team like Benfica and actually Napoli, to be honest. But I think the Real Madrid will just match them physically then be a better footballing side.
That's what I was just about to say. The way that the draw shapes up, we couldn't cut them any more than that.
Yeah.
Because the two Spanish sides at the head of affairs. But do not discount Bayern Munich from being able to do a job on one of those two sides.
Yeah. Fantastic Champions League, and we'll keep you updated on that market, of course, after the second leg games. And we're going to get into the weekend's football and find the value for you in the Premier League if we can. Stay with us on The Punter. Welcome back to The Punter, where my guests are breeding. Turns out Neil Channing wasn't killed in a desperate race for a crossbow in order to ensure food and survival. He was actually just having a bet somewhere. So, Neil, great to have you.
So great to be here.
Welcome. You're not having a good week, I can tell.
I've had a really terrible week, actually. I think the last 2 weeks, I haven't bet very well. And my staking has been poor, my confidence is low. Cheltenham, should have really been a very spectacularally big win, and it wasn't, and it's affecting me badly. So there's a lesson there.
Okay, so look for some dark vibes in part 2. Let's go to Man City Sunderland, shall we? The Premier League, as ever, dominates the weekend's football, and we'll start with Man City Sunderland. This is a title race game, not actually televised, I don't think, but Man City will be heavily fancied. Any interest, do you think, in this game? What price do you have to put Sunderland at to get some action?
A big price. You'll see. We're 10-1. I can see that drifting. I think we're just taking we're not taking a chance with the draw there, but I mean we're just trying to encourage some business. You wouldn't usually see business on the draw anyway. But I went to this game last year. It was a 5-0 win for City, and they played really well. It was about the time that they were being fancied to go on a good title run this season, and I can't see any bet in this game, really, to be honest.
Sunderland were really bad last week, weren't they? I mean,
let us down
think they can be as bad post FA Cup.
They can't be as bad as in that game against Everton.
I'll tell you one thing that interests me is I don't have any views on having a bet in this game. I probably, unless Sunderland go 1-0 up, I can't see me having a bet in this game. And even then, it's not even on telly, so it's not going to get a lot of public money.
Yeah.
One interesting thing, Alan, that I know, and you pointed out about this, I hadn't even noticed this until recently, and now I'm fascinated by it. The Racing Post have a feature this year where they show you if you had £1 on best price on this team, where you'd be. And you've been winning on both of these teams this year.
Yeah.
That's surprising, isn't it? How can a team be like top of the league and you're winning?
The Man City one is really odd.
It's not. I use these figures. I think it's fantastic. In fact, it's been going for a bit more than a season. They just don't publicise it.
I don't know why I never noticed it.
But it's really good. And what I would say is I use this for a column that I write about the clubs in our division, because they do it for the Blue Square as well. Now, you've got Fleetwood, who are top of the league. They're £15.09 £15.09
Well,
to
my
a £1 stake.
My
That's
point
off the
is,
league.
That's amazing.
how have the bookmakers? How can you be three-quarters of the way through the season, top of the league, the most high-profile club in the division, and the bookmakers haven't figured you out yet? That doesn't make any sense.
It's not. I wouldn't say that it's because it's not been figured out. I mean, bear
It's
in
from
mind
all
it's
the wins
also,
early in the season.
It's
you
also
think?
best price. It's
That's
because
true.
of the best
Yeah,
prices.
yeah.
Now we've got a
So
side.
it's probably a hangover from them being underestimated at the start of the season, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Luton, where are Luton now? They play tonight.
They're going to be a minus
they're
for sure.
absolutely overrated in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
division.
yeah.
They're minus £8.82.
Yeah.
They're playing against the York side, who are about measured on the prices,
Right.
and you'll see they're about as close to zero as they could be.
But
minus
without-
£1.42.
But without bad-mouthing the Blue Square Premier, this is Man City. There's no way that Man City could be underrated early in the year. It's not like they won this game 5-0 last year. People knew that Man City were fancied for the
Half-decent.
Premier
Yeah, but look at
at
this.
the start of the season.
Yeah, but look at this, Neil. Their home record, they've won every single game.
That's true.
Now,
That's
whether
true.
or not
Yeah.
that's adding 20p to the pile every time, it's certainly not a £1 minus.
Sure.
And that is exactly why.
Does it surprise you that Sunderland? Where are Sunderland?
Yeah, but
on
how many
this?
minuses would City have had?
Yeah,
But
not many.
Sunderland would have also had that period of about 6 weeks after Martin O'Neill came in.
They're very good at home.
They overachieved.
And they're very
for
good at
about
home. They
6 or
do win a
7
lot of home games. But they're £4 up. I mean, it kind of surprises me that
Yeah,
Sunderland
but
are ahead.
they could go to 14 and lose their next 6 games and still show a huge figure.
You're right.
I think it's very interesting because you've got teams like City and Fleetwood and all the top table teams that because they're relentlessly winning, they'll be adding the 20p.
So perhaps this is a stat. If it's a mid-table team and it's a plus, then it's the time to look at this stat.
I don't know how you could use them really because I honestly don't.
Let's move on because I hate this
If we
game.
come to conclusions to how we can use them to help you, we'll make sure we bring that to you. But it's a very interesting study in how teams have been performing compared to expectation, I think. Let's move on to QPR Arsenal on Saturday. Not a televised game, but a game with ramifications at both ends of the table. QPR have been horrifically bad, I think. I think that we've talked for the last couple of weeks on people backing them to go down. They're now not an attractive price to be
we got it right last week, didn't we? They were in a letdown situation.
Yeah.
They'd had this euphoric, massive comeback against Liverpool, and then they went to play Sunderland, and what do? They disappoint. Just when
so many teams do that.
and there was money for them as well. They were on the Asians. There was money for them. I mean, I think I selected to back Sunderland at like even money, and they went out to 5-4 on the off. There was quite a concerted gamble for QPR last week.
Those prices are certainly round the wrong way.
They are around the wrong way, yeah. I was going to say, I quite fancy Arsenal at 9-2.
Yeah, even I do.
Yeah, so just to clarify, QPR 9-2.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
Arsenal
you
74.
couldn't back Arsenal even at 4-5, could you, Alan? Where would you back them? Even money?
I think they'll win. I definitely think they'll win this game. They haven't won 8 games on the bounce since about 2004. And as we were saying in the earlier part of the programme, I don't think that that's the kind of form that they're in at the moment. I just think that the fixtures and the luck within those fixtures has run for them. But QPR are the type of team that Arsenal will easily brush aside.
I think it's interesting that there was some money for them last week because I guarantee it's from people who didn't actually watch the Liverpool game. Because if you actually watched the Liverpool game, they were
smash and grab at the end.
They were desperately poor, and they have been for a little while.
I'm not a massive fan of Mark Hughes at all, and I didn't.
It's hard to see
think,
what he had, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible to think that they thought
look.
he
What
would
do you
be
think? What do you think?
the saviour here.
I'm always interested in angles that other people aren't looking at and how you can get around the numbers without just talking about, well, they're 12th in the league and they're 14th. How do the styles match up here? How do Arsenal go to QPR? Sometimes I see teams and I think
they match up really well for Arsenal in this
why
game.
is that?
Well, QPR don't put in a tackle, do they?
Yeah. I think the thing is, I mean, I was just saying, when Nick was saying about my Arsene Wenger rant at the start of the season, it's quite relevant to the question you've just asked because they won't have looked at QPR at all. I know this from insiders at the club. They won't have looked at a video of QPR. They won't have looked at any of the players. They won't look at the way they put the corners in. They won't look at the way that they take a free kick. They will take them out there and say, you're playing against 11 people today, do it my way.
What are they doing all week? What are they in the betting shop or something? What's going on?
They're just tippy-tappy passing at London Colney. And at the moment it's fantastic and it's working.
He's not happy. I am, for goodness sake.
I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it.
Let's spin it on to the big crunch game for, what is this for, 8th or 7th or something? Newcastle, Liverpool. I just want to blow my brains out as a Liverpool fan.
Well, this one.
Are people still trusting this Liverpool team with their pound sterling and their dollars?
Newcastle £9.06 and Liverpool £6.34. We know which way round the minus and the pluses are.
Absolutely. And I'm not. Luton are like Liverpool from our division. It's the overhang of I expect them to be good. I expect them to be good, and it still happens.
I'm sure back-to-back defeats to QPR and Wigan will probably finally puncture that balloon.
Well, this is the thing. But then we've been saying earlier in the season that when they do drift to a price nearer 6-4 and odds against, they're winning for the bookmakers. And I can see with this being a live game, that people do not need an excuse to oppose Liverpool at the moment. They really don't. We love going best price them, and you will see a fair amount of money.
The money in Asia has been for Liverpool this week already.
But it always will be, won't it?
Yeah, no, but already, like 3 days ago.
I mean, that's just. I think I couldn't. I mean, I'm a pessimistic Liverpool fan, but Newcastle, this will mean the world to them. To finish sixth is huge for that club. Yeah. The Liverpool players are just on the beach until the FA Cup semi-final.
I know we've spoken about the Asian moves for Liverpool and the certain amount of it is to do with it's to do with them hitting the bar a lot and having a lot of shots
but that was
and that kind of thing. Yeah, of course.
It was.
But I mean, just from the mentality of the way the prices have moved, Tuesday morning, this game, the money was for Newcastle. For Liverpool, and Newcastle have drifted out. Why would you rush in to back Liverpool 4 or 5 days before the game?
Strange.
Like, it's not like you have to beat the rush to get on Liverpool at the moment.
Let's move on. Quick look at Tottenham Swansea because it's on TV basically. Tottenham team for whom the wheels have come off, and I don't know if you.
Don't think
those prices are
completely
no, those are not the right
wrong. Prices. Apologies for that.
Yeah, just Tottenham will be 4-1 on, and Swansea at 9-1, I think.
5-2 on.
5-2 on. Sorry, and 9-1. Yeah.
Would you back them at 5-2 on?
I'll tell you, well, I've gone back to my hardy perennial. Even money you can lay Spurs to be winning at half time. I mean, Swansea are involved in a lot of low-scoring games, and Tottenham, as we say, the wheels have kind of come off. Would you put me off that one, Al?
No, not at all. I think that's a good bet to have, especially the way that Swansea line up, because they're I would say they reduce the way that Tottenham would approach this game, and they'll try and do that for as long as they can, and nick a goal or two from their play down the wing. So, although Tottenham might match that style a tiny bit, so whether or not they cancel each other out, it's all reliant on an early goal. This one, and I always like. I've said it before. I always like the over 26-minute market.
Yeah, I like that as well. Actually,
if you're with a bookmaker where you're getting 0-0 as well. In amongst that, I always like backing over on that. And then there are not many games, even where a side's short price.
What's really gone wrong with Tottenham from being like super good and everyone loving them, and now they're a bit rubbish?
It coincided with the Harry Redknapp.
It did, but I think it's a bit of a red herring because I think the problem is that he doesn't rotate his team.
Yeah.
And the two old school managers that don't rotate, Dalglish and Redknapp, both their teams are now in serious lack of form in the second half of the season.
I haven't seen Bale be particularly impressive. I've seen them a couple of times recently, and I'll have Bale. I don't really like Tottenham, but actually, earlier on in the season, I thought, wow, this guy's really good, and I didn't think
he's
that
still
the last
good.
couple of times.
I just think he's not getting the ball in as much space. Anyway, we just must move on to the last featured game, which is Blackburn Man United. And as we know, Blackburn won at Old Trafford at I think best price 28-1 or something. 28-1, yeah. You can now get them at 8-1 at home. So it's a shoe-in, isn't it? It's a nap.
See the way that Manchester United played the other night when they started getting a bit jittery when Fulham were trying to hold them.
And they conceded that penalty, but then there was some sort of temporal warp dysfunction where the referee didn't blow his whistle.
It should have been a penalty. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. We could be sitting here talking about a 1-1 and obviously completely different title odds at the top of the programme.
Yeah.
But as a one-off game, I don't think Blackburn have just got it in them to pull this off. If betting on the game, you would want to be with Blackburn. You'd want to be a layer of Man.
This is not the sort of bet I would ever have, but I would happily bet my personal cash at 8-1. 8-1 at home. It means Blackburn are desperate to get out of relegation trouble. Man United are not, to me, they're not convincing. They're winning, but not convincing.
Of the two, I think I'd rather back Swansea at the same kind of price, even though they're away at Spurs. Spurs are in a bit of disarray. Really? And I know Blackburn are at home, but I think of the two, they're similar bets, but
Okay.
I think
That's
just
interesting.
generally I like home underdogs. But
All right,
I
well,
wouldn't put anybody off. Wouldn't put anybody off. But I think going back just very quickly to the
Very
Tottenham
quickly.
thing, I think there might be a bit of regression to the mean of the whole season.
I think you're
as a
absolutely
whole.
right. I think that
That's
is.
fair.
I think that is
That's
the
a
key.
fair
That is
call.
the key point. Bit of regression to the mean to end the pot, and I like it. We'll do the rest of the weekend sport after this break.
Yeah, 9 days.
Welcome back to the Punter. Great to have your company for another look ahead to the weekend sporting action. There's a little bit of horse racing going on, obviously the Dubai World Cup, but a little bit of horse racing in this country as well. The Lincoln Handicap is happening at Doncaster, that's right, isn't it?
It's Doncaster,
Yeah.
the start of the flat turf season.
Yeah,
And,
the curtain raiser.
It is, yeah. It's what they would call the traditional curtain raiser,
Yeah.
a bit like the Community Shield. And it's a big handicap. It's over a mile at Doncaster. You've got horses that are coming back from long layoffs. You've got horses that have been running on the all-weather and they're fit. You've got handicap plots. It's been a strange race for bookmakers over the last few years because 3 of the last 7 favourites have won it. But actually, in amongst those, there were some big gambles at bigger prices. So you can certainly see that. The draw was yesterday. Not too much from the draw. I think the pace is pretty evenly spread across. There's some stats you really need to look into for this. I'm big on trends to just eliminate horses and then start looking at form afterwards. And you really don't want to be looking anywhere above 9 stone 4 in the handicap. There's only one winner that's come from above that in the last 10 years. And that was one that was absolutely thrown in on handicap ratings that happened subsequent to the race. So you need to be a very, very, very good horse that's shadowing all of your form to be high in the handicap. But a lot of the ones you'll see there, Eton Forever is second on the card. You've got Edinburgh Knight, there's top weight. You can eliminate those. I really think you can eliminate those. And if we're looking at a market where you can eliminate quite a bit of percentage there, you also want to be looking at no horse older than 6. No horse older than 6 has won this in the last 10 years.
This is great information.
And you just, I think you can really narrow it down. You can narrow it down to 5, and I'll give you one of those, and then that's Baron Brook from the Mick Easterby stable. Down towards the bottom, he's a Yorkshireman. He would absolutely love to win this race. He likes the odd plot. This one's available around 20 to 1. I could not put anyone off backing this each way. Conforms to all the stats, all the age trends. And looks a very good bet where we can eliminate a few of those.
Alan, let me ask you a couple of questions because I've done absolutely zero work on this race. I don't remember having a bet in it in the last 5 years. One thing I'd like to ask first of all, because you've definitely done some homework here, the all-weather, it's a lot more of a big thing these days than it used to be. The racing it's proper racing. People take it seriously. How much does that change the way the Lincoln is? Because it used to be, a race where in the early days of the all-weather, half the field had 1 or 2 runs on the all-weather and the other half were more traditional stables that didn't bother giving it a prep race. Yeah. And actually the traditional stables did better. People like to back the ones that they'd just seen 2 weeks ago and that didn't really work. Has that changed now?
Yeah, I mean, now you've got 3 factors. You've got horses coming back from Dubai. Godolphin have got 2 in this race for the first time this weekend, which is, incredible to see them. It's a valuable prize, of course. And then obviously the all-weather, as you've mentioned, and then the traditional stables who say, well, no, this is the start of the season. And actually, if you look back over the last 10 years, as I've been doing, there's been a fair spread from each of those 3 groups.
But do you think that kind of throws the 10-year trends out of the window in that the whole profile of the race has changed so much in the last kind of 3 or 4 years? Or?
No, because actually, if anything, those last 3 years have been very solid on the trends. And they've actually backed up the trends.
I've got another one, because there's an old chestnut, which I hate, and I don't know where you stand on this. First of all, you got no opinion on the draw on this race? There's no advantage?
No, I really honestly think it's all to do with how well the jockeys play it in the first furlong.
Okay, because this is a thing that people say, and it kind of drives me mad, actually. When they say it just matters where the pace is.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, but I actually mean that from the point of view that a jockey can decide to give his mount a bit of a livener early on and then produce some pace. I'm not talking about looking back on the form of these horses and saying, right, okay, Edinburgh Knight made all in its last race, so therefore it's going to, blast off in the front. It's totally to do with jockeyship.
Because if you take a race like the Stewards Cup, where traditionally, it is a big draw race, and there have been years where that side are clearly miles ahead of this side. it's a nonsense to say, well, that one's a front runner, so it can overcome a
do
terrible draw.
So just conclude that for us.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the draw in this race.
No.
Don't worry too much about pace in the race.
No, I would say that it's not about saying where the pace in the race is, because it's only something that it'll only be obvious to you afterwards where the pace actually was.
Okay.
So say that is why it won. I couldn't
yeah.
tell you beforehand that those were going to blast off on the far side or in the middle. So
Great.
it's a bit, it's a bit of a misnomer.
Unbeatable analysis of the flat curtain raiser for you. Now there's a huge prize on offer in Dubai this weekend, actually more than one. We'll just have a quick look at the main event, the Dubai World Cup, and no kind of superstar at the moment, is there, in World Tour, to my eye anyway. I mean, So You Think has got a lot of support in this race, but he's a bit vulnerable in different races, and a couple of times when he's been the subject of huge bets, the time was it Ascot that he massive bets on him.
Yeah, I don't like So You Think at all. I mean,
I don't understand.
It doesn't come out well at all on speed figures, and that's another thing that I use.
So why is he 9 to 4? I don't understand why he's
it's incredible.
short.
But I laid him. Was it the Eclipse that he
won? Yeah,
and I laid him that day, and I mean he's just won that through sheer dogged determination towards the end of the race, which is obviously bred into him from where he started his career down under. And I would just say that I won't be backing him. I possibly will go in again for another lay of him at this price. And then also, I wouldn't be surprised if he won as well. It's just one of those horses that I won't be able to call right. So,
give us one to take him on then. From
I've always liked Zazu as a solid performer. And because So You Think is taking the market to a stage where he's a 9 to 4 favourite, you're definitely getting some each way value.
It's not a bad each way race, is it? I noticed the bookmakers a quarter first three as well with the 8 runners. Which,
you have to.
That's not bad, is it?
That's normally enough to get me out of bed in the morning.
It's the kind of thing that Neil really likes, and I'm not surprised. But you're encouraged by the fact that obviously at Cheltenham races like this, we're going to do that. We are going to do that.
Well, and also the other thing that just to temper that a little bit, a lot of times when you look at if we look at some of those Cheltenham races, the favourite was very short, and there were 2 or 3 horses that were kind of 200 to 1. This race is uber competitive, but I still think
it is. Yeah,
I still think if you bet a horse like Smart Falcon each way, I'm pretty sure that 11.08 a place will turn out to be quite a bit bigger than the place only price on Betfair.
Do you know, the only thing I ever say about that, and this is a really interesting point, it can apply to absolutely any race whatsoever. Smart Falcon is actually in there to beat So You Think. So we'll actually use everything
the tactics.
In its tactics, in its armour.
That's a fair
to actually
call.
beat So You Think. Whereas a horse like Zazu with the connection saying, do you know what? It wouldn't be too bad to finish second today. Let's play it that way.
Yeah, and if you could get 3 to 1 a place Zazu, that would be it'll probably turn out to be 9 to 4.
I'm really not like you on
Betfair.
that, because I know that you look for your 4 to 1
bit.
guarantee.
Not always.
Between 4 and 6 to 1 places. I'd much rather leave those alone. That to me,
well,
they're like evens favourites.
Where I don't do that is like if we take a race like from Cheltenham, like the World Hurdle, where the second and third favourite were not guaranteed stayers. In that race, I completely abandoned it and went for bigger prices to get in the frame.
Seems like we had a similar Cheltenham though, like where I should have actually won. I should have won a lot, and
every time we talked to you, you called it right. So I'm amazed you didn't win a lot, especially the big races. But we must move on from horse racing, because I want to talk a little bit of NBA, one of my favourite sports both to watch and have a bet on. And the season is kind of drawing to a conclusion. And I wanted to talk to Neil about it because he does a lot of NBA betting, something that might interest you guys. Let's have a quick look at the odds for the championship. We're about 3/4 of the way through the NBA season, a bit further actually maybe, and we're just moving up to playoff time. This is not actually what I want to talk to you about, Neil, but I just wanted to set the scene by looking at the outright market. Miami Heat have been favourites since the start of the season. Quite interesting that they're still that short, and that you can bet Chicago 7 to 2, and Chicago may be the better team.
Chicago have gone really hot recently, and Miami are really off the boil. I mean, I actually was thinking a few weeks ago that might be. I hadn't actually had a bet on the outright, and I hardly ever do.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking, I could see the playoffs starting, and Miami not really doing anything, and suddenly going from 5 to 4 to 8 to 11. and maybe it's time to back them at 6-4.
Right.
And since then, they've done absolutely rubbish, and all they've done is drift to 7-4, which doesn't seem like enough of a reaction to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a game the other day where they weren't even favourite. That was like the first game for 2 years where they weren't favourite.
Really?
They were a 2.5 point underdog.
Right.
If I had to pick a bigger price
I think there must
one,
be a bit of value in some of these teams just because it's a slightly weird year. With
yeah,
the
maybe
lockout and
maybe
everything.
Dallas at a big price. I quite like them. I don't know. I do a team I quite like in some games at the moment is Utah. I think they're on an uptick, but yeah, I don't tend to get involved in the outright.
So just very quickly for viewers at home, what do you like to bet on the NBA? Do you bet points or do you bet?
I bet points and I bet totals. I'll tell you in a nutshell.
So under over, these are under over
Yeah,
bets
I'll
for
tell you in
people
a
that don't know.
nutshell what I'm doing on the NBA, and I'll tell you what the bookmakers are doing. Okay, this is going to take me some time. Have I got time to say this?
You've got 1 minute 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll try and do it quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. There's
I don't
two
know how long
ways.
you've got.
There's
I'm
two
just
ways.
interested
There's
to see you
two
do it
ways you can
quickly.
be. There's two ways you can be a bookmaker. Okay.
Yeah.
You can either split the result, or you can split the money.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me explain what I mean by that.
There's no way you're going to get this out.
Splitting the result. Okay. We have a total in the NBA, 180.5 points.
Yeah.
I can split the result. I can keep setting that line, and after a year, 50% of the time it will have gone under, and 50% of the time it will have gone over. Okay. Now it might be that 80% of the punters back over every time, and 20% bet under. But I've set a line where half the time I'm right, and half the time it's over, and half the time it's under.
Yeah.
I've probably done a good job there. The other thing I could do is set a line of 183.5, where half of the money goes one way and half of the money goes the other way. As it happens, 83% of the time it's gone under. Have I done a good job or not? I don't know. Because I've made half my punters back one way or the other. Which way is making me a better bookmaker? I'm not really sure. Now, the other thing that happens in the NBA...
You have to finish it
Okay,
up.
the other thing that happens in the NBA is 65% of the money is from shrewd punters.
Yeah.
Those are the people who care about splitting the result. They don't care about splitting the money. They're concerned about the line at which the result finishes half the way one way and half the way the other.
Okay.
35% of the people are total mugs. They're more concerned about, you know, you
So
see
you're
what I
just
mean?
trying to attract that money. So
I'm trying to play against the mug money,
you're
and
trying
I'm
against
looking
the
at the
mug money.
result and not at what the market sentiment says. I don't
Okay.
know whether I explained that properly.
Well, you explained
I
it,
got it.
and yeah, definitely. And if you're interested in taking the other side of the betting equation, then that's a little insight in how you can do it on an American sport. Now, after the break, we'll get our punter to put his money where his mouth is for charity and sum up the rest of the weekend's action. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the last part of this week's The Punter. We're going to look at F1 because we haven't squeezed it in yet. Of course, 2 races into the season, and the markets would be starting to form, except there was a really odd race for the second race with the form book out the window a little bit.
Yeah, very odd in Malaysia because obviously the McLarens, they qualified 1-2 again. Great performance from both drivers, great performance from the car, most importantly. And they started the race really well. It did look as if they were going to finish in a 1-2. But the rain came down, and that really played into Ferrari's hands. The tyre
From a
change,
viewing point of view, because
the tyre changes, massively in their favour. McLaren didn't make the best of calls with Button and Hamilton because they had a driver leading the race, but took in the driver that was actually third to have his tyres changed first. So Hamilton had to do an extra lap on the wrong tyres, lost his position, and that was key to the whole race. And Alonso's won, but I know some people are on Sergio Perez, huge prices each way in Malaysia, and he went 104 in the actual race.
I was following you.
20-1
I was
Yeah.
following you on Twitter, and you were talking about Perez, and I was following the bet butler Nigel Seeley, and also Russ Wiseman, and they were both talking about Alonso. And actually, fair play to Seeley. Because he said early in the race,
he did.
early in the race, he said he's 13-8 now. He will win.
Yeah.
And then he drifted out. I didn't. Obviously it was 6
But
o'clock
it's a
in the
massive
morning.
call,
I wasn't
but
awake for this.
He
but,
was actually,
yeah.
he was actually wrong at that point because I'm not, knocking Nigel, which is a great tip. But Perez has traded odds on because he just got on the tail of Alonso, and he had the speed, and he had 5 laps to do it, and he made a really rash decision and clipped the curb. and Alonso got away, and he was never going to have the chance again. So
great debate in running. Where are we with the Drivers' Championship?
Fantastic.
Because
it
really hasn't kind of resolved itself.
Can I ask you a question, Alan? Because I was
just 1 second, Neil. Let's just
about
just
the
go through
championship
the odds.
though with Vettel.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
sure. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Vettel's still 3-1.
Yeah,
the two McLaren drivers.
We
are
should
the
be sitting
favourites.
here now with Hamilton on something like 36 points and Button around 30 odd points.
Yeah.
Button won his earlier race, but obviously in Australia, we should have actually seen the two McLarens finish both of those races on performance. It didn't work out for them.
So do you think this market's a little bit wrong just because of the result in the second race?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Red Bull car has improved recently. Ferrari weren't expected to be winning races. I mean, I honestly wouldn't take the Alonso price of ours of 10-1. Sporting Bet obviously think that
that looks like a massive overreaction to a wet weather race, doesn't it?
He everything played into his hands that weekend. The Ferrari is not performing. You can see that by Massa qualifying in about 15th. So there's no way he should be 9-2.
I was going to ask you about Vettel because a couple of guys, you know the way I like to bet. I like to look at things and think about overreactions and where the public is maybe getting a bit carried away one way or the other.
Yeah.
So my initial reaction after the first race was, surely this is just one race. They must be getting carried away. There must be a bit of value in Vettel. He was favourite 1 minute, now he's 3-1. The second race, he didn't exactly, tear the place up, and now he didn't drift. So surely Vettel's too short now, isn't he?
See, the problem there is the fact that the Red Bull has actually improved, but I don't think it's improved enough that you're going to see in the next race in a week or so's time that it actually comes back. So if you fancy Vettel, yes, the car's going to improve, but don't back him yet.
Somebody said to me in the week as well. Someone said to me in the week, last year was just all about the car, and that he's only about the 7th best driver. Is that unfair?
Yeah, I'd say that was rubbish. He's a great driver. He's definitely a great driver.
It is weird that Formula 1 would be about the car, though. Really weird. Let's move on. No F1 race this weekend, but interesting to see that market. Now, Flash can't be with us this week, which is a bit of a shame because he had a fantastic week last week. I know that some of you follow his picks. Many of you, in fact. He got the 5.
Unbelievable.
He's having an amazing season.
137-1.
He doesn't
137-1.
miss. I have to say as well.
You only need one of those, don't you? If you're doing it every week.
I must admit, I was Wolves against Norwich. I'm glad he's not here. I don't want to have to listen to it.
Yeah, because you did go opposite directions. He would really have put the boot in.
I'm waiting for his Arsene Wenger repeat on me. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, he has every reason to crow. He's having a fantastic year on our 5 games.
No wonder he hasn't come in today.
He's out partying or recovering. Let's have a look at his picks for this week then, which we've still got for you, even though the man's not here in person. He's got Fulham to beat Norwich, Everton to beat West Brom, Leicester to beat Peterborough, Leeds to beat Watford and Gillingham to beat Macclesfield. Any of them jumping out to you two?
Yeah, I want Norwich to beat Fulham and West Brom to beat Everton. Every week Flash does the opposite of me and he wins every week. I don't know. I can see why he says Fulham to beat Norwich. If he was here, I'm sure he'd tell us that Fulham have great home form and Norwich are overrated and they've had a hard season. They've got nothing to play for.
Everton in form.
I'm sure he'll tell us Everton are in form and West Brom are a relegation candidate. I would tell you that Everton are in the middle of a sandwich game. They've got this big FA Cup semi-final the week after. They must be having a look over their shoulder for that. West Brom score more goals away than most teams that are in the bottom 5 or 6. Everton concede about 1.5 goals a game. I think West Brom are a massive price at 7-2 against Everton. And he would probably tell you that Fulham are great at home. I would say it's two teams that are roughly in the middle with nothing to play for. How could Norwich be 9-2? They scored. They won last week. Fulham have lost 3 on the bounce. I know 2 of them were away from home.
Again, it's just this difference between you that you're looking at the price and he's looking at what he thinks the result is going to be. Let's move on to your bets then. Now, big week last week. You have really scored nicely here.
Thanks for
I
that.
think I've got it in my pocket.
So harsh.
It's a win. It's a win.
It's great. I don't know, for just a second, I was running around my front room, high-fiving the cat. Wolves were 1-0 up. I was giving it the large. I was just about to tweet a few people and say, ha ha! And then Norwich equalised immediately. They literally equalised within a minute. And of course, Norwich were down to 10 men right near the end. Weren't they? Isn't that right? Didn't they? The goal scorer got sent off. I got all excited for a second. Swansea Everton was a bit of a gutter. Obviously, we talked about Sunderland. Yeah, whatever. There we go. It wasn't the best ever week.
Yeah, but you won. What's the problem?
Yeah.
So what do you
exactly.
like this week?
What do I like this week? I like those two games I just said about. I love Norwich away at Fulham. I just think it's a massive price. Norwich is slightly ahead of Fulham in the table. Okay, you can say Norwich might be regressing slightly and possibly they had a brilliant start to the season. But I don't think Fulham are exactly on fire. They've just lost 3 on the bounce. Yes, admittedly, one of them was against Man U. West Brom, everyone fell for them last week. They went crazy. They got backed into even money to beat Newcastle. Yeah. It seemed a mad price. But Everton, they fall for them every week. I opened the paper. I expected West Brom to be about 5-2 to win this game. They're 4-1 in a place. Even if you have to take the 7-2, I think it's a big price. Bolton, we've all got this kind of idea that there's going to be a big feel-good factor for Bolton. It worked out. Normally I'm against those things, but it did work out. They beat Blackburn. They seem to be playing all right. Wolves are pretty terrible, and I just thought they'd be the other side of 2-1. I expected Bolton to be about 7-4. 9-4 seems a very fair price to me. And in the Spurs game, we talked about it already. I want to lay them at even money to be winning at half-time against Swansea. I just think Swansea, they can keep it a low-scoring game. I actually think Swansea could just nick it, but at 9-1. But, let's play it safe and even money just to be level or winning at half-time for Swansea.
Okay. Good stuff. Al, anything that we haven't covered?
Which is my worst one of those, Al? If you had to leave
one of those. I suppose on the prices, the Bolton to beat Wolves, because it looks a value bet, but it's probably not far away from the price, whereas the two at the top, I agree, they
could be miles out. From the price. They could be miles out, yeah.
Well, I'll go into our division for a non-league bet, Blue Square Bet Premier. Leaders Fleetwood are away at bottom club Bath. I
hope you like Bath.
No, there's a handicap price of 10-11 out there for Fleetwood to win this game by more than 1 goal.
Okay.
Now, Bath are averaging just 0.85 goals per game.
That's not very many.
Fleetwood are averaging nearly 4 goals per game in their recent games. This is a huge game for them. They can wrap up the title tomorrow. They're professional. They've got lots of attackers up front. They will flood the midfield and attack to win this game, and against a side that can't score.
Nice
I expect it to be a high-scoring victory, and
so
10-11 is a huge
price. We're going to bet 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, is it?
Yeah,
have that
I
as
think
well.
we can do those as well.
And
but,
where will you be this weekend?
I'm going to that game.
You're going to that game? Lovely. Yeah. Neil, you're going to be at home wagering?
Pretty much, yes.
Nice.
How did you know?
I just have this bond with you now after 15 weeks of knowing that.
You've seen his diary.
Yeah, I've seen your diary.
At home punting.
white space.
I have a board. It says all the calendar on
it. Great stuff as ever from our experts. Big thanks to Al Alger from Blue Square and Neil Channing, our resident punter. There'll be more from the punter very soon. Have a really great weekend, and I hope you come out a big winner. See you soon.
Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.